Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, The Power of Learning Katana for Lighting, and thank you for joining. My name is Elise and I am part of Foundry's industry marketing team. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Taeyoung Kim. Taeyoung is a senior lighting and look development artist at Sony Pictures Imageworks and an instructor at the Langara Center for Entertainment Arts. Taeyoung is here today to share his experience using Katana and why he enjoys teaching it to the next generation of artists. Today, we are also joined by Ariel Martin, who is Foundry's Lighting Associate Product Manager, and she'll be sharing an update on Katana and moderating the live Q&A at the end of the session. If you have any questions, please add them into the questions tab on the right-hand side of the screen. There you'll also see a chat tab, so feel free to say hello. I see many of you already are, and let us know where you're joining from. Before I pass it over to Taeyoung, I'd like to just go over a few things. First of all, today's session is being recorded, and the recording will be sent directly to you afterwards. Also, check out Foundry's website for our upcoming webinar schedule and to watch previous webinars on demand. Our upcoming schedule includes the future of VFX and machine learning and AI automation in Nuke on August 26th, and we're bringing back Foundry Live in September, which is a 5-part event series featuring upcoming product releases in the research showcase. Also, on October 7th, Sony will be coming back to talk about Katana training for lighting artists. The registration page isn't ready yet, but we will launch a poll to see if any of you are interested, and just keep an eye out on our live stream page for the registration. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to mention Foundry Learn. On Foundry Learn, you can find many great tutorials for Katana and our other products, as well as developer documentation, release notes, and more. We recently added new Katana tutorials, which you can see here. And if you'd like to check those out, we'll share a link to the Learn page in the chat. And to any students who may be watching, Foundry offers the Education Collective license, which includes Katana, Mari, Nuke Studio, and Modo for free to those who apply. If you're interested in applying for the Education Collective license, please go to Foundry's education page. And I'd also like to encourage you to stay up to date with Foundry, whether it's by checking out our Insights Hub, where you can find articles and case studies, following Foundry on social media, and/or subscribing to our newsletter. If you have an online account with Foundry, your email preference center has recently been updated, and you can go there to opt in to receive our quarterly newsletters and product-specific communication. And to those of you who may be interested in joining Foundry's Look Development and Lighting team, it is expanding, and we're currently looking for 3 new engineers to join the team. If you're interested in learning more about these available positions, please go to foundry.com/careers. And finally, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody for attending today's session, and especially to Taeyoung and Sony Pictures Imageworks for joining us. We're very grateful for all that have participated and the opportunity to stay connected with you over the past year and a half virtually. So without further ado, we'll move on to the main event. The next part has been pre-recorded for streaming quality purposes, but we'll be here with you in the chat and come back for the live Q&A. So I hope that you enjoyed today's webinar and stay tuned for more to come.
Hi, welcome to my webinar, The Power of Learning Katana for Lighting. My name is Taeyoung Kim, and I'm a senior lighting TD and look dev artist at Sony Pictures Imageworks. Before I begin, I would like to thank Foundry for inviting me to create this webinar. It's an honor to be here today. I also would like to thank Sony Pictures Imageworks for letting me use some of Imageworks materials during this webinar. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Taeyoung Kim. I was born and raised in South Korea and came to Canada back in 1997. I always loved drawing and painting as a child, but it was the Matrix that made me realize I want to do visual effects for a living. I started my career at Atmosphere Visual Effects as a Maya FX and lighting TD. Then I moved on to MPC. They were using Maya when I first started there. Then they implemented Katana, and that was how I learned and started using Katana. After MPC, I joined Sony Pictures Imageworks as a lighting TD first, then started doing look dev as well. Working at Imageworks allows me to work on both animated and live action shows, which I find really fascinating and just awesome. I also teach lighting using Katana at CEA, Langara Center for Entertainment Arts. I also have been working with the Nomon workshop, creating a tutorial on Katana, showing the basics of working in Katana, from creating a lighting template to creating simple but useful tools to improve workflow. We are expecting it will be released very soon, before the end of the month. During this webinar, I will first talk about Katana as a lighting tool. I'll discuss how Katana's sequential workflow helps boost our efficiency, some difference between when working on animated and live action shows. I will also share a lighting template that I'm using on my current show and talk about some nodes and tools that we use regularly in our lighting team. Then I will share why I love using Katana as a look dev tool as well. Sometimes there are assets that need some maintenance work when it goes to lighting, like it evolves as we see it in different lighting situations. Fortunately, I'm working on a very fun and interesting asset that required a lot of this maintenance work on my current show, and I will show you how I'm using Katana to handle these needs from lighting department. Lastly, I'll talk about why I use Katana to teach lighting at school, and how I believe it will benefit my students in their future career. I'll also share some video interviews from some of my students and the head of School for Visual Effects and Animation at CEA, so you can hear their thoughts on Katana firsthand. Without further ado, let's start this webinar. Let's talk about sequential workflow first. This is one of the key benefits of using Katana as a lighting tool. Traditionally, when working on multiple shots, one had to have separate directories and files for each shot. This makes it very time-consuming and difficult to do some common tasks like copying over things from one shot to another or comparing how things are set up in each shot. Because Katana's sequential workflow makes it possible to work on multiple shots all at the same time, these tasks cannot get any easier. Let's take a look at an example. This is a judo template that I made for this webinar, a very simplified version of what I use at work, which I will share one example of in a few moments. As you can see, this Katana file or recipe has 5 shots, shot 1 to shot 5. Up here, there are 5 nodes that bring in each shot's asset. This is where my key lighting setup is. I will explain what key lighting is shortly. From there, I have 5 branches for each shot. Each of these branches represents what I'm doing in each shot. As you can see, it's easy to see what I have done for each shot. Katana uses graph state variables and variable switch nodes to drive which branch to pick. If I choose shot 2, as you can see, corresponding nodes will be activated. Same for shot 3, shot 4, and shot 5. At Imageworks, to make sure we take full advantage of this sequential workflow, for animated shows especially, we invest quite some time on key lighting. Key lighting is a stage where we set up the light to achieve desired look and feel of an entire sequence. Usually, shots in a sequence are split into key shots, same as shots, one-off shots. Key lighters work on key shots first, then see how the light setup works on same as shots and one-off shots. From there, lighting tweaks are made in each shot until the lighting job is considered done, anywhere between 80 to 90%. When key lighting is approved for the sequence, it gets passed on to other lighters and they take the shots to final, which is called shot lighting. On animated shows especially, because having a strong key light setup has proved its efficiency, we almost always spend some time on key lighting until things get too busy and cannot afford to. With good key lighting setup, lighters get to final more shots within shorter amount of time. On Vivo, which released on Netflix on August 6th, please go watch it, it's a beautiful show. We had a team of key lighters only for a few months before other lighters joined the show. As a lighting artist, I find key lighting really rewarding because I get to decide how every single light lives in the sequence. Following directions from my supervisors, I get to light the entire world from darkness and achieve the look and feel the client wants. Not only that, sometimes your soups throws you something you didn't think of and you need to come up with a smart solution. For example, in these helicopter chase shots, I first only had a spotlight constraint to the helicopter and its volume. When I showed my first few lighting passes, my VFX soup said, with this super strong searchlight, it would be really cool to have the volume act as a light source, which I didn't really think of before. So I came up with a solution to make the volume appear as a light source, and I think it helped a lot, making this sequence look even cooler than before. This may sound like only an aesthetic challenge, but it's also a technical challenge as well. Because Katana is a node-based program, it's like a blueprint or a map. If everything is well laid out, you can do a lot of things, and it will get you anywhere you want to go. But if it's not, you won't be able to do much with it, and you will hate whoever created it. For this reason, I need to make sure the template is well organized, easy to read, and optimized for faster renders. I find setting up the template itself is a very fun challenge when working as a keylighter. On live action shows, on the other hand, we cannot afford to spend a lot of time on keylighting. Time frame for live action shows are a lot shorter. On Vivo, which we released on Netflix on August 6, please go watch it, it's a beautiful show. I was on the show for 2 years, looked up to lighting. But my current live action show, again looked up to lighting, is only going to be somewhere between 6 to 8 months. Some live action shows are even shorter. Because of this shorter time frame, I find working on live action shows are quite dynamic. Like riding a roller coaster, it's very fast paced and not very linear. But that doesn't mean the live action shows doesn't benefit from Katana's sequential workflow. We still get to start from a kill lighting and work on multiple shots at the same time. I would say because I mentioned traits of live action shows, Katana's sequential workflow is as essential, if not more. Let's take a look at a lighting template from my current show. This is a lighting template that I use on my current show. It's created and maintained by Andreas Gabriunas, my lighting lead. Every show would have similar but different lighting template. That is because every leads and key lighters have different preferences on how the template should be set up, and different shows require somewhat different customization. Like live action shows would require some different setup from animated shows, and shows like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse would need some special setup compared to other animated shows. So this template would represent only one example of lighting template that we use here at Imageworks. Compared to what I shared previously, this might appear a bit more complicated, but base structure is same. Here at the top area, assets for the shots are imported. In this session, key lighting setup is done, and this is where shot lighting is happening. And all these are render passes. At Imageworks, instead of having multiple importomatics like I showed before, we have a tool that does everything in one node. This tool allows artists to add shots automatically or manually. As you can see, I have 8 shots in this Katana script. When a shot is set to current, it automatically updates the required assets and Katana's frame range as well. Graph state variable on the top is linked using expression referencing activated shot in this node, but I broke the link for the purpose of this webinar. In this session, we have nodes like collection create nodes, local material assignment, look file manager. This is where the key light setup is located. As you can see, I have 6 branches. If you remember, I have 8 shots in my template. If multiple shots require a little or no lighting tweaks, those shots can be combined into one branch. Then using a variable switch node, the changes can be made for each shot. These branches also include different setups for render passes that we see down here. Let's take a look at this group of render passes. This is where all the environment related passes are located. And these are some interactive lighting passes on environment passes. We are separating any interactive lighting effects like flashlights from cameras and whatnots for lighting, rendering, and compositing efficiency. As you can see, we have a lot of passes for different purposes. And all these different passes require different setup. For example, for all the environment passes, we would want to turn off characters' camera visibility. And for character passes, we would turn off environment camera visibility. And also, say we have Homer and Bart in the same shot. For Bart pass, we would turn off camera visibility of Homer. We also might turn off displacement and hair on Homer depending on its impact on Bart pass. To do this rather complicated setup, we extensively use Katana's variable switch node and variable enabled group in conjunction with variable set node and graph state variable. As I showed before, graph state variable is here on the top. Depending on what I choose variable switch node that looks at graph state variable chooses corresponding branch. If you look here, we have a variable set node. Its variable name is pass group. Its variable value is environment. If I go to shot lighting session, there are a few variable enabled group nodes. As you can see, this node is activated. That is because this node is looking for a variable set node with pass group as its variable name and has env as its variable values. With those variable set nodes at the bottom of node graph, we activate this node and what is inside. Inside the variable enabled group node, there is a variable switch node with pass name as its variable name and its value, which is set near each pass's render nodes, as you can see here. Whatever I do here will be only for whatever is connected to corresponding variable set nodes. For example, if I create a new light like this, it will only affect shot G building passes. No other passes will be affected by this light because the node is not activated for those branches. As you might have noticed, there are a lot of passes, and not all the shots require all of these passes. We have a tool that lets us pick which shot to render and which passes should be rendered for each of render shots. We also use live group quite extensively as well. This key light setup is a live group, for example. Whenever my lighting lead makes changes to it, it will get updated in the template automatically, so we know we have latest and greatest setup from him. Many artists come up with their own customized setup or tools while working on their shots that can be also helpful for other team members. And those tools are placed here to be shared. It's also a live group as well, so when more tools and setups are created, they will be added in this live group, so every artist on the show have access to them for their shot work. As you can see, Katana's powerful sequential workflow make it possible to work on multiple shots all at the same time without much hassle. Also, Katana makes it so easy to share tools and setups that artists come up with, which result another boost in artist efficiency. Using Katana, with help of amazingly talented artists, supervisors, and production teams, Imageworks are able to create what they create in a very efficient and manageable way. Now, let's talk about why I enjoy using Katana as a look dev tool. One of the assets that I looked at on my current show had a lot of long boards like this. As always, I spent quite some time to match plates and reference images when look deving this asset. When Katana look file was published and the lighters started lighting the asset in the shot, it worked as expected for most of shots. However, we soon realized that for some shots, depending on camera's angle, distance from the asset, and lighting situations, we need different setup for roughness breakup on the boards. I could not just use textures and bake it to KLF, because depending on camera angles and its distance from the asset, the intensity and scale of the breakup needed to be adjusted. In close-up shots like this, we would need really small breakup. But in longer shots like this, those small breakups would not be visible at all. I needed to give full control to lighters to adjust the values and tweak the materials depending on their shots without causing them too much headache, but still within a reasonable limits. Let's take a look at node graph that makes up this assets material. We use something called pattern create at Imageworks. It's equivalent of network material create node in Foundry's Katana. All these nodes make up how the asset appears, and every parameters in these nodes can be adjusted to change material's reaction to lights. Obviously, I cannot expect lighters to dive into this network and make changes to make it work in their shots. That would be just crazy and everyone will hate me. This is why I made this tool here. By exposing selected parameters from nodes in the pattern create, I can connect them to parameters that I created in this tool. This is where randomization of normal can be adjusted from 0 to 1. 0 means no randomization and 1 means full. If 1 does not give enough randomization, they can activate this parameter and push it even further. The roughness breakup is made up with 3 different scales, so they can be mixed to their taste. Depending on shot's needs, the visibility of this roughness breakup can be dialed, also each scale. By creating tools like this, I can help lighters to make changes to material and make it work in their shots without much hassle. When I make changes to the tool and pass it to lighting lead, he updates the tool in his live groups, so all lighters pick it up automatically. If customization is required, they can do so very easily by placing the node in their template and adjust values on their own. I find having the ability to create tools like this and being able to share it with other team members is an absolute necessity when working as a look dev artist. Which leads me to reasons why more responsibilities I get as an artist, the more I enjoy using Katana. As a junior artist, I enjoyed Katana because it was easy to understand what's going on. As a senior artist, I enjoy Katana even more because, as I shared just now, Katana makes it so easy to work with team members and create tools for others. I can't imagine how I could do what I do if it wasn't Katana, really. I use Katana to teach lighting at CEA as well. Before I go on, let's hear what the students have to say about Katana.
Hello, my name is Angelina and I'm studying Advanced Visual Effects at the CEA. My first experience with Katana was really frustrating. I didn't really like it at first and I wouldn't think that I would be still using it at this time. It took me some time to get used to Katana too because I was not used to do lighting procedural way. While I was using it, I got really used to it and now I don't really see coming back to Maya to light my models or any other software. I feel like Katana is really comfortable. It shows you the errors right away and it shows you where that error is and it's really easy to fix stuff. When I got to the studio Bardell, they were actually using Katana for the whole lighting pipeline and I was surprised because I didn't know that a lot of studios use this software. And currently, I'm using Katana every day when I work and I love it. I don't know, I can't see myself going back to any other software. And yeah, that was my experience with Katana. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Harshit, aka Harry, and I started using Katana 8 months before. I still remember the moment I opened the software, I was a bit confused because I was also a Maya person whenever it comes for lighting. But it totally changed my mindset throughout the time being after using Katana. The moment I started using Katana, I still remember that I was not familiar with how the node-based method is going to work for the lighting workflow. But the moment slowly I got into the interface and started learning the workspace, I got to know about how powerful this tool becomes. For me, especially being a student, I do a lot of many changes in my lighting setup, and it helps me to approach it without starting it from scratch. Because of these key features, Katana had become an industry-driven software, which really helped me to land on my first job as a lighter, just after learning a few months of Katana.
Hello, my name is Akshay. I'm a Term 5 VFX student at Langar CEA. I've been using Katana since for the past 5 months, and it's been a really good journey with Katana. Because when I opened it for the first time in my first class, it was a little bit confusing. After using Katana for a bit of time, what I understood was, like, at the beginning I was using it for just single shots, but once I got into a studio as a junior lighting pump artist, you might get like 20 to 30 shots in a sequence. And that is why I was like really impressed with this Katana, because it has a non-destructive workflow that allows you to just keep building tools, and you can reuse the templates as much as you want other than creating every shot from scratch. So that saves you a lot of time, and it makes it so much convenient and efficient in a pipeline.
I remember the first time I saw the interface and thought, what is going on here? And then, where is my render? Or what is this thing complaining about? It was my first personal project that helped me the most. Going in on my own and practice what I learned made me realize how amazing the program is. Node-based is something I really love about Katana. Debugging is easier, and you can check your render log. Most of the times, it tells you exactly where your problem is. I started my career as a compositor, but after working in Katana, I can see myself as a lighter too. I'll be honest. As it was mentioned multiple times, most of my students, if not all, find it very confusing and dislike it when they first start using Katana. But I don't blame them really. They are used to another software, and it's probably their first time even hearing about Katana. When they first open it, there's nothing, and they can't even create a cube and admire it. But after only a few weeks of using it, they get converted. Really, you heard what they said. Once they get used to Katana, they all love it and start to realize its power. And it also helped them find their first job in the industry, even before they finish their program at CEA. Let's see what the head of School for Visual Effects and Animation at CEA has to say about Katana.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Best and I am the head of the School for Visual Effects and Animation here at the Center for Entertainment Arts. When we first launched our school, we knew that we had something that was really special. Many Foundry projects were already in our pipeline, including Nuke and Mari. After much research, with no surprise, Katana was an industry favorite at many top studios, and it became a must-have for our students as well. To be a top school, we have to adapt to what the industry is looking for. We are very excited at the work that our students, Taeyong, and the fellow lighting instructors have produced through Katana, and the work that has yet to come. Thank you so much to Taeyong and the Foundry for helping us to share our story today.
As she mentioned in the video, Katana is being used by many studios, big or small. And thanks to CA's amazing work initiative program, our students are able to get an opportunity to use what they learned at school in a real studio environment. With Katana taught only a few months, our students were able to fit right in as a junior artist, which led them to a full-time contract even before they finished their program at CEA, which I find just amazing. To become a lighting artist, one needs to know how to light, and Katana is obviously a great tool to teach that, because lighting is one of the two reasons why Katana was created in the first place. But that's not the only reason why I use Katana to teach lighting to my students. For student interviews we just watched, I didn't tell them what to say or what I wanted to hear, but I'm really glad they mentioned how easy it is to debug in Katana, because that is what I want them to learn besides lighting. Because Katana is a node-based program, it makes it possible to train them, problem solve, and debug by logical thinking and by really understanding what's going on in the script, not by guessing or following random instructions found on the internet and hoping for the best. During first few classes, a lot of students run into a lot of problems. Of course, it is expected. They are students. They panic and say, "Taeyong, this doesn't work, that doesn't work." I tell them it's okay to break things, because really that's how they learn. Then we as a class look at their Katana scene together. Most of times I can spot and fix the problem in couple minutes. all while I explain my thought process of debugging problems. Again, all this is possible because Katana is a node-based program, which makes it easy to track down what has been done and what is breaking things. As the class proceeds, I can see they build up their logical thinking and debugging skills. I still love the excitement in their voice when they first successfully debug something without my help. I think these are really important skills to have to survive in this fierce and competitive industry, and Katana is one of the best programs that I can think of to introduce these skill sets to students. They may not know it yet, but they might not end up as a lighter. They could be doing something else and end up not using Katana at all in their career. But this logical thinking and problem-solving debugging training will stick with them no matter what they do, and I believe it will only help them in their career. If they become a lighter, even better. They will continue realizing the power of Katana and love it more and more, just like me. This is end of my webinar. I hope you learned something valuable today and realized the power of learning Katana for lighting. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariel and I'm an Associate Product Manager at Foundry. My background is that I worked as a pipeline artist on animated films for a while and then joined Foundry initially as a demo artist for Katana before moving to the product team, which is where I am now. So my aim now is to make sure that Katana continues to meet the ever-changing needs of our industry. So today, I will do a quick update on some of the features that will be coming up very shortly. And I'll start by talking about a feature called Foresight Plus. Now, some of you might have already heard of the Foresight tools from the last release. It was released in Katana 4.0, and I'm very excited to share with you the direction we'll be moving towards in that space. So for those of you who might not know, Foresight was a feature that enabled artists to send off multiple renders simultaneously. So these processes could be happening on the local machine, on the farm, or even the cloud, and enables us to send, give instructions to the queue system that we built for it and stream back the resulting pixels into the monitor tab, back into Katana, so we can continue to work and iterate on our shots. And if you're able to leverage a lot of machine power, this really speeds things up and can give you the power to preview lots of variations at the same time or lots of shots at the same time. So this is what Katana Foresight is. This has been available since the last release, but we also knew that this was unfinished, especially for working with live rendering. So if you had lots of live renders running simultaneously, any changes made in Katana would feed back and update all of the renders, even if it didn't apply to some of them. And sometimes that's okay, but it's not what we want if we are making, for example, small lighting tweaks on a per shot level. If these tweaks get applied to the whole sequence, then this becomes counterintuitive. So that's one of the areas we tackled for the next release with Foresight Plus. So we can now make changes, for example, on a per shot level, and know that only the renders that have seen changes will then be updated, and the others can continue to render without interruption. And then with this comes a whole host of useful workflows that can really speed things up when lighting your shots. First of all, we can sync these renders so that when you're switching between catalog items, it'll also update the graph state variables in the project. So your node graph and your viewer will then update as you flick through these catalog entries. So what's in the viewer will match up with the particular render that you're viewing at that point. There's also the ability to unlock specific variables per catalog items. So if you want some of the renders to update and some not to update as you're switching between these variables, then you can use this functionality to lock and unlock them as you please. And this is Foresight Plus. That's the ability to work with multiple live renders at the same time, to be able to dev lots of assets and have lots of variations at once, or to light a whole sequence of shots at the same time. And we see this as a service provided to Katana. So to elaborate here, the services are external processes like live rendering, that can run on a local or remote machine and then stream pixels back into the Katana session. They could be running on one shot to relieve pressure on your local machine, or they can be working on lots of shots at the same time. So that is the service consumer infrastructure that we're building at the moment. So what other services could work like this with Katana? How about live nuke compositing inside of Katana? So again, kicking up a process and sending it elsewhere. Although this time, instead of sending off a live render process, we would be sending images from Katana into a nuke script to be live composited and then fed back into the catalog. So here is an early prototype for that work, and you can see Katana on the right, nuke on the left, and it illustrates this streaming of pixels back and forth. So if the light changes in Katana, for example, the update goes through to nuke and streams back into Katana again. So the first version of this will see this type of communication between both Katana and nuke, with the option of having nuke in headless mode. This means you can preview your comp without having to jump back and forth between Katana and nuke. And all of this will help preview from the lighting stages what the shot will look like further down the pipeline. Or if one artist is lighting and compositing their shots, then all the more reason why this is useful. So that is an extremely exciting feature that will be coming up in the next release, and we're really excited to show you more at our Foundry Live events in September. And before I leave you on a cliffhanger, I will tease you a little bit more. So the next release will be a dual release with Katana 4.5 and 5.0. They're both going to be very similar. The only difference is one will be on Python 2 and the other on Python 3. Both will be on VFX Reference Platform 2020, and there are a whole host of really exciting things that are coming up. We've already had a sneak peek of Foresight Plus and Nuke Interrupt, but there are a few more things coming as well, including a range of UX improvements in our network material context. So here is an example where the ports will auto-filter based on the type that is being dropped in. And there's much more coming within that space. For those of you who are also interested in USD, we will continue with Katana to build on our integration with the upgrade to USD 2105, with support for Hydra delegates, also shipping with a delegate for Foundry's Advanced Viewport, which is available in Mari and Modo, and also the ability to preview instances in the viewer. And that's all I will say. Anything additional will be unveiled during our Foundry Live presentation in September. So if you want to have more information, then come along to the event. Thank you all for your time, and we will now answer your questions.
Hello, I will now invite Taeyong to the stage. Thank you so
Hello,
much
everyone.
for that great presentation.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed.
I definitely did.
Awesome.
And also thank you to your students and your colleagues. That was really insightful to get all of their feedback.
Yeah, they were quite excited about this webinar.
So that's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Are they watching it too?
I think so.
Great. Well,
I hope so.
Hello to everyone who participated in the video. Before we tackle some of the questions from the audience, I have one question for you. So you speak a lot about kind of teaching your students problem-solving skills, logical thinking, debugging skills. It's clearly a very important thing to you as well. Would you say those are crucial skills for students to acquire?
I think so, because when I was a student, I was using Maya and I thought I was pretty familiar with it. But when I started working at MPC, I felt like I didn't know how to use Maya at all, because there were so many problems that seniors, of course, would just fix it. But I didn't really think about debugging things, because at school, everything is working, right? Because I set up everything. but at work something breaks, and it always happens no matter what. And like, I think it's essential for students to know that things will break all the time, and it's good to have some training before they start working, to have that mindset that you need to debug things when things break. You cannot expect seniors or leads or supervisors to come over and fix the problems for you every time, because they are so busy, right? So yeah, I think it's totally essential to know how to debug and be prepared to do those things at work.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate to that as well. I mean, even at university, things would break all the time, even if I was the one setting it up. But then that could also be the problem sometimes is lies between the chair and the keyboard. So in terms of your background as a technical artist, as a TD as well, would you say that scripting is crucial? Or kind of knowing these kind of technical skills?
So I have a traditional painting background. I didn't study programming at all at school, but I always had interest in scripting and programming, and I taught myself how to do those things. And every time I teach my students at school, they ask me, like, is it a must to know scripting? And I said, it's up to you. Like, it's not essential, but it's going to definitely help. For example, when I was prepping my class at CEA, I was using Quixel's Megascan stuff. And I didn't know there was a plugin for that, Akshay or something. So without scripting, knowing how to script stuff, I would have create collections and assign materials one by one, which would have taken me such a long time, especially when I have a bunch of stuff to do that. So I wrote a script to do that automatically for me, and it saved tons of time, obviously. So if you know how to script and stuff, it will definitely help you. But again, it's not essential, because there are seniors and leads or supervisors that don't really care to script, and they're amazing artists. So it's not essential, but it will help you if you do.
Well, thank you so much. Looking over at the questions, let me just look from the top. How is this sequential workflow handled in compositing afterwards? Is that something that you have visibility over where you work now? Is that do you know how that's handled? Are you even able to share how that is handled later on?
I'm not sure if I can talk about it, but there is a pipeline for that at Imageworks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because I only composite in feature animations. So I'm not sure how much I can share and how much I can talk about.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I can see that Gary behind the scenes has been quite busy answering these questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary.
As well. Yeah, thank you, Gary. Gary is a product manager at Foundry for the lighting side of the team on Katana. Another question is, will this recording be available on the Foundry site later? Yes. So as long as you've registered, you can access this video as you please. And I think after a month, this will also be uploaded on the YouTube page as well. And what formats are supported in Katana? So for asset import, it is Alembic and USD. So we are continuously building on our USD integration, as you also saw from that portion of the presentation. So it supports bringing in materials, assets, cameras, lights, pretty much anything that you would need to come into Katana. In terms of the export, it is still something that we are working on. We have a material bake mechanism that supports USD now. So you can bake out materials as long as you have kind of a delegate setup. So it does rely on communication between Katana and the SDR and the shader registry that it's accessing. Is there a way to view particles and volumes, or is this in progress? So volumes isn't something that you can view from the viewport in Katana, but you can obviously render them and preview them from the renders. In terms of instancing, as you see, that's something that we are supporting. It'll support instance sources, instance arrays, for those of you who are familiar with those terms. And also nested instancing. So there's a whole host of things that are coming up in the next release. So I hope you're really excited about that. Just to clarify, in case it wasn't clear, Katana covers look dev and lighting stages. Also, there is a kind of scene management side of things, as you've also gauged from Taeyong's presentation, is that there's a lot of creation of templates. There's a lot of bringing your assets together, bringing everything that came before those stages together into Katana. And Taeyong, feel free to prod me if there's anything you can see from the questions that you'd like to tackle.
I saw something, but I forgot. Wait.
Okay. There is one here. Can you tell us a little bit more about Live Group and how you use them in production?
Oh yeah, this was the one I was looking at.
Great.
So Live Group is a group node that gets updated when the original group gets updated. It gets updated automatically in the template. So for example, my lighting lead Andrews has a key lighting setup for the sequences, right? And if he made it as regular Gaffer 3 or Gaffer 4 node and just put it in there in the template for artists to pick up, when he needs to make changes, they're not going to be updated in other artists' lighting template because it's not live, right? So it's just sitting there. It's nothing. But when you use helicopter flying by, but when you use a Live Group, whenever he makes changes and he saves it, it gets updated in the lighting template. No matter, like, as soon as you restart or refresh your Katana, it gets the update. So key lighting would be a good example of using Live Group, and like such nodes like collections and some passive setup, those could be Live Groups. So yeah, Live Groups are groups that get updated automatically when things are changed.
It seems
I hope it answers
also,
the question.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Go ahead.
For interrupting you. It does also look from your presentation that there's certain ownership also assigned to certain groups. Like you were saying, a lead might be working at a sequence level and might be using these Live Groups to work collaboratively with other team members. Out of curiosity, is that how your students work as well? Do they work collaboratively within their scripts?
No. So at work, because of pandemic, I am teaching class online, and every students are staying at home. Mm-hmm. So it didn't make sense for me to teach them how to use Live Group, mm-hmm. because they are using their own machine, so it's not like they can use my Live Groups or stuff. So they're using their own stuff, and I couldn't go over look file and stuff as well.
Cool. At the start, you mentioned a new course will be released. Which platform will it be available in?
It's going to be the Nomon workshop, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people know. And we are working to publish it by end of the month. And in that course, I'm going to go over how to create a lighting template from scratch, and making some tools that could speed up your workflow and stuff. So I think it's going to be a pretty informative tutorial.
Sounds amazing. I really look forward to watching it as well. And also, because there's quite a few questions on learning Katana, and there's so you can access learning material from the Foundry Learn website on our in the Katana section. We also have a YouTube channel. And there's also example projects within Katana. So you can go, when you have Katana open, you can go into help example projects. And basically it ships with a whole bunch of examples so that you can learn certain workflows. There's a few, especially since we're talking about scripting, there's a few Upscript examples, which is like a procedural node inside of Katana that you can script with. And these are also going to be revamped. So these example projects are going to be updated, and they're going to be shipping with the next release, which is going to be the 4550 at the end of the year. So very excited to share it with you guys, and also excited to get some feedback on it as well.
I just want to say I checked those example projects as well to figure out how to do things.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, it helped me as well when I first started. These example projects were extremely. It has little kind of nuggets of wisdom as well, nuggets of information, which is also always really, really useful for. And so I hope that you'll find more of those in the next set of examples.
Awesome.
A question for Taeyong. What are some of the big mistakes you see in Reels if you're trying to get a job in lighting or look dev?
Showing same light setup for multiple shots. So let's say you created this beautiful room and a lot of beautiful assets inside. And what I see most is you see different camera angle, but same light setup. I was talking to one of my friends at Imageworks, and he's a supervisor, Seiji and he and multiple of my friends said, it's good to show multiple light setup, because if you show same thing over and over again, it gets bored and it doesn't show you how you deal with different lighting scenarios. So if you're planning to show multiple shots of same asset, use different lighting scenarios like overcast sky or sunny day, night, sunset, different lighting scenarios. And for look dev, I'm not sure, because I didn't really start my career as a look dev artist, and I haven't seen too many look dev demo reels. But if you know, you could answer that.
Not particularly myself. I haven't either worked as a look dev artist, but there is also a question. I think there's also more aimed to your students actually, or based off of their testimonies. What is the difficulty level and time to transition from Maya to Katana on a whole project level? So a lot of your students have moved from Maya and Katana. They've talked about, getting used to it, getting used to this kind of different way of working, in a node-based way.
Should I message my students, see if they want to answer?
Well, if they're there, go ahead.
So what was the question again?
What is the difficulty level and time to transition from Maya to Katana, but in pretty much generally any tool really, kind of transitioning to Katana? From my perspective, if I'm speaking from experience here, is when I first started using Katana, I had come straight out of university, so this whole concept of pipeline and how everything works together was completely new. But transitioning to Katana was one of the most kind of stable aspects of that, given that I was used to using node-based workflows with Nuke, for instance. So I know that in some cases it's extremely fast if you're used to working in that way, if you're used to thinking in that way. But I'd imagine it's not necessarily the same thing for everyone.
Right. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to answer, but I'm not sure, like I mentioned in the web, like during the video, all of them had some difficulty and they didn't really see why they need to learn Katana. And because they were used to the other software, I'm not sure if I can mention the name, but once it only takes a few weeks, I think. And once they Okay, start. Oh yeah, that's one of my students answering the question. It took 2 school terms to get used to it.
Wow.
And yeah, so there was another student who learned katana pretty quick, and he was working at a studio and he really loved katana. So I think it depends on students, but mostly they end up loving katana like I do.
Yeah, definitely, especially when it comes to iterating, making a few tweaks. Opening up a project will be extremely quick in comparison to some other tools as well. I remember, opening a Katana project and knowing exactly what it was I needed to tweak. I'd previewed the render and I thought, oh, actually, I just needed to modify this particular parameter. All I had to do is just set it off and then open it up, and that was the bit that really made me fall in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I am a bit biased given that.
Oh yeah, of course.
What I do now.
I am too. I'm totally biased. But the thing is, like, when you do things and somehow it breaks and you don't know how to fix it, your instructor or your seniors can come over and find what's breaking, right? So Katana makes it so easy to do that. So that's one of the reasons why I love Katana.
Yeah, definitely. Fixing things, well, fixing scripts used to be my day-to-day job, so I can definitely relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easier to get used to Katana if you already know how to use Nuke? Well, from my experience, it was, because it kind of got me used to not necessarily the application itself, although they are kind of getting closer together. The app, certain features are kind of similar, like live groups are available in Katana, and then they got brought into Nuke later on as well. For me, it was just more about understanding node-based workflows and kind of understanding the logic of that. So how everything kind of flows from top to bottom in Katana. You can also view what is happening at any given point. So if you want to preview the scene from everything north from everything up until that node, then you can do that really, really easily. And like Taeyoung says, if something is wrong and you don't even know how that attribute landed there, or why is my microphone disappearing from my shots, or why does my character have no hair, then it's really easy to walk up the node graph and say, okay, this is where it all broke. So yeah, it definitely helps coming from another node-based tool.
Yeah, I agree. But you will eventually get used to it, even if you don't know how to use Nuke.
Yeah, we also have, as well as the courses that you mentioned, Taeyoung, but there's also a whole bunch of videos that you can follow to kind of get used to it, that will also explain kind of like the thinking behind things, not just tell you click this and this is the result that you'll get. So hopefully that also helps speed up that whole process. Katana is quite a simplified really tool. Really, it really is just dedicated to look, dev, and lighting, and so all the tools are pretty much dedicated to that, to the whole kind of look, dev, lighting, and also rendering processes. So as long as you kind of learn the kind of how do you say, the staple nodes, or the kind of the base nodes, the nodes that you go back to all the time, then you can pretty much do a lot of things inside of Katana.
Yep.
We are coming up to, we have passed the hour already, but if there's anything that you wanted to tackle, Taeyoung, before we wrap this session up.
For students, I want to say, I know it could get tough, but don't give up. Just keep on trying and trying. If you keep at it, you will eventually get what you want to do. I think that's one thing I tell my students all the time. Don't give up. That's it. And Katana is awesome.
I can second that. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for a great session, Taeyoung. It was so amazing. Your presentation was so insightful. And have a lovely morning, evening, day, wherever anyone is. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.